#A Forbidden Duke's Obsession. Part 1. What happens when a duke's youngest brother marries a woman society deems unworthy? In Victorian England, that question could destroy families. But when Ian McKenzie, a man declared mad and locked away for most of his life, meets Beth Akali, a widowed vicar's wife with a fortune she never expected, neither of them cares what society thinks. This is their story. Ian McKenzie wasn't supposed to be at the opera that night. His brother Hart, the Duke of Kilmorgan, had other plans for him, political manoeuvring that required Ian's unusual gift. You see, Ian possessed a memory so perfect it was considered a curse. He could recall every word of every conversation, every detail of every treaty. His family used this ability constantly, but perfect memory came with a price. For most of his childhood and youth, Ian lived in a private asylum. Not because he was dangerous, but because his father couldn't understand him. The way Ian's mind worked, his inability to meet people's eyes directly, his literal interpretation of language, his overwhelming focus on details others missed, it all convinced a commission of lunacy that he belonged locked away. Hart eventually freed him, but freedom didn't erase the scars. Now Ian sat in a box at Covent Garden Opera House, watching a performance he had already memorized after hearing it once. Next to him sat Sir Lindon Mata, a pompous collector who thought he understood porcelain. Mata had invited Ian to view a Ming bowl, and Ian had come because the bowl interested him more than anything else happening in London that week. "Like a woman's breast," Mata said, holding up the bowl. "Don't you agree?" Ian didn't respond. He was studying the glaze, the delicate dragons circling the rim, the slight chip that told him exactly what this piece was worth. 1,000 guineas. Mather had paid 1,500. The man was an idiot, but Ian's attention shifted when Mather mentioned his fiancée. Mrs. Beth Akali would be joining them shortly. A widow, recently come into a substantial fortune. Mather spoke of her the way he spoke of his porcelain, as something he'd acquired, something to display. Ian's hands tightened on the bowl. When Beth entered the box, everything else faded. Ian noticed the curve of her neck first, then the intelligence in her blue eyes. She moved with quiet confidence, comfortable in her own skin, despite the whispers that surely followed her everywhere. A vicar's widow marrying a wealthy collector. Society would have opinions. Mather made introductions with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. "My very close friend, Lord Ian McKenzie. His brother is Duke of Kilmorgan, you know." Beth extended her hand. Ian took it, feeling the warmth of her fingers through their gloves. He should have released her hand immediately. He didn't. Instead, he traced the pattern of stitching on her glove with his thumb. Over and over. The sensation grounded him, pulled him into the present moment in a way nothing else could. "I find that a Ming bowl is worth 1,000 guineas, he said abruptly. Mather's face went red. "I paid 1,500. "Then you were cheated." The conversation spiraled from there, but Ian barely registered it. He was focused on Beth, the way she breathed, the pulse in her throat, the small smile that played at her lips when Mather blustered. She had a sense of humour. Ian appreciated that, even if he didn't always understand jokes. He should tell her about Mather. The thought came suddenly, with complete clarity. Mather kept a house near Temple Bar, where he met women, multiple women, and paid them to use him as their slave. Ian knew this because Mather had bragged about it to Hart, thinking it would impress the Duke. It hadn't. Beth deserved to know what kind of man she was marrying. So Ian wrote her a letter, right there during the opera. He listed Mather's activities with clinical precision, included the names of 5 women who could verify the information, and slipped the folded paper into Beth's glove when Mather wasn't looking. "Read it out of his sight," Ian whispered in her ear. Her breath caught. Then she nodded. The next act of the opera began, But Ian didn't stay to watch it. He'd accomplished what he came for, warning Beth about Mata. What she did with that information was her choice, except he found himself thinking about her constantly over the following days. Those blue eyes, that quiet strength, the way she'd looked at him without pity or fear, just simple human curiosity. Most people either avoided his gaze or stared at him like he was a specimen in a jar. Beth had done neither. Ian made inquiries. His valet, Curry, was exceptionally good at gathering information. Within 24 hours, Ian knew everything about Beth Akali's life. Her father had claimed to be a French viscount, but was actually a confidence trickster. Her mother, a gentleman's daughter, had married beneath her station and paid for it with years of poverty. Beth herself had worked in a workhouse before marrying Thomas Akali, a vicar who genuinely loved her. Then, Thomas died, and Beth spent 9 years as a companion to Mrs. Barrington, a wealthy widow who'd left Beth everything when she passed. 100,000 guineas, a house in Belgrave Square, freedom. And now Mather thought he could use that freedom to fund his perversions. Ian read the announcement in the Times 3 days later. The betrothal between Sir Lindon Mata and Mrs. Beth Akali was at an end. Good. He should have left it there. He'd done what he set out to do. Beth was free of Mata, and Ian could return to his porcelain collection and his work translating political documents for Hart. But he couldn't stop thinking about her. So when Ian discovered that Beth had fled to Paris, he followed. He didn't question the decision. It made perfect sense to him. Beth was in Paris, therefore he needed to be in Paris. The logic was simple, even if his brother Cameron laughed when Ian explained it. "You're chasing a woman to France?" Cameron shook his head. "Hart's going to have apoplexy." Ian didn't care what Hart thought. In Paris, Ian found Beth staying with his sister-in-law, Lady Isabella. Isabella had separated from Ian's brother Mac 3 years ago, though she still loved him desperately. Ian could see it in the way she spoke Mac's name, the pain that flashed across her face when someone mentioned him. Love confused Ian. He understood desire, the physical want of another person's body. But love seemed to involve all sorts of complicated emotions he couldn't quite grasp. People did irrational things because of love. They hurt themselves. They hurt others. They made choices that defied logic. He didn't think he was capable of love, but he wanted Beth. That much was clear. So he proposed to her in his brother Mac's studio in Montmartre, surrounded by half-finished canvases and the smell of turpentine. "You could marry me," Ian said. Beth stared at him. "I beg your pardon. I don't give a damn about your fortune. I have enough money. I want you." It wasn't romantic. Ian knew that much about courtship, even if he didn't fully understand it. He should have brought flowers or jewelry, should have gotten down on one knee and delivered some poetic speech about her beauty. But he'd never been good at poetry. Beth's response surprised him. She didn't swoon or giggle or play coy. She looked him straight in the eye and said, "Why would you want to marry me?" "Because you have beautiful eyes." "How do you know?" "You've not once looked at them." She was right. Ian had been carefully avoiding her direct gaze, focusing instead on her mouth, her hands, the curve of her shoulder. Meeting someone's eyes felt too intense, too overwhelming. It required a level of connection that frightened him. "I know," he said simply. Beth studied him for a long moment. Then she said, "I'll think about it." That wasn't a no. Over the following days, Ian courted Beth in the only way he knew how. He took her to restaurants where he held her hand under the table, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm that made her breath quicken. He showed her his collection of Ming bowls, explaining the history of each piece with passionate detail. He kissed her in a closed carriage while rain pounded on the roof, and he told her the truth about himself, the asylum, the treatments, the father who'd locked him away, He explained how his mind worked differently, how he couldn't always follow conversations or understand social cues, how loud noises and crowds overwhelmed him, how he sometimes had rages he couldn't control. "I'm mad," he said flatly. "The Commission of Lunacy said so." Beth touched his face. "You're not mad. You're different. There's nothing wrong with being different." She didn't understand. How could she? She'd never seen him at his worst, those moments when the world became too much and he lashed out, hurting anyone nearby. She'd never watched him spend hours arranging his porcelain collection in precise order, unable to stop even when his hands bled from the work. But she said she loved him anyway. Ian didn't know what to do with that. The proposal happened in a seedy pension in Paris, of all places. They'd been caught in a police raid at an illegal casino, and Ian had hustled Beth to safety. Inspector Fellows, a man who'd been trying to connect Ian to a 5-year-old murder, had followed them, ready to arrest Ian for kidnapping. So Ian married her. He found a priest, acquired a license through sheer force of will, and had the ceremony performed before Fellows could interfere. When he emerged from the pension with Beth on his arm, Ian looked the inspector straight in the eye and said, "Mrs. Beth Akali is no longer here. Lady Ian McKenzie is." Fellows' face went purple with rage, but there was nothing he could do. Beth was Ian's wife now, protected by the Mackenzie name and Hart's considerable political influence. They travelled to Scotland immediately after to kill Morgan Castle, where Hart waited. Ian knew his brother wouldn't be pleased. Hart had very specific ideas about suitable marriages, and a vicar's widow with a dubious background didn't fit his criteria. Sure enough, when they arrived, Hart's expression was glacial. "Was there no other way?" Hart asked, his voice flat. Ian met his brother's gaze for a brief second. "Fellows would have used her against me. This protects her." "Very noble of you." Hart's tone dripped with sarcasm. "If she makes you unhappy, the marriage is annulled. She can be made to keep quiet for a large enough sum of money. Everyone has their price." Ian's hands clenched into fists. But before he could respond, Beth stepped forward. "Call me Beth, please," she said calmly. "I am no longer Mrs. Akali and have become, to our mutual astonishment, your sister." Hart froze. Then his eyes narrowed as he studied Beth more carefully. Ian had to hide his smile. Beth had just done something very few people managed. She'd surprised Hart McKenzie. And judging by the slight widening of his brother's eyes, Hart was reassessing his initial judgment. Good. Beth would need that steel in the months to come. Being a Mackenzie wife meant facing society's censure, navigating family politics that could turn vicious, and dealing with secrets that went back generations. Secrets like the murder Ian had been accused of 5 years ago. The murder that Inspector Fellows was still determined to pin on him. The murder that might destroy everything Ian had finally found. But that was a problem for another day. Right now, Ian had a wife to protect and a life to build. He'd spent too many years locked away, treated like a dangerous animal. He wouldn't let anyone, not Fellows, not society, not even Hart, take this chance at happiness away from him. Beth was his, and Ian McKenzie protected what was his with everything he had. The first few days at Kilmorgan passed in a blur of servants, rules, and Hart's watchful presence. Beth had grown up in poverty, worked as a lady's companion, and thought herself prepared for anything. She was wrong. Nothing prepared her for the sheer size of Hart's estate. The main house sprawled across the valley like a small city, with wings that stretched in every direction. 4 stories tall, hundreds of windows, and enough rooms that Beth got lost 3 times on her first day. The servants treated her with cautious respect. They'd clearly received instructions from Hart to be polite, but their eyes held questions. Who was this woman who'd married Lord Ian so suddenly? What kind of person snared a duke's brother without a proper courtship? Ian seemed oblivious to the tension. He showed Beth his private wing, a suite of 10 rooms that he'd made entirely his own. The bedroom was surprisingly simple, with clean lines and minimal decoration, but the sitting room next door was filled with shelves, shelves upon shelves of Ming bowls. Each piece sat on a small pedestal, carefully labelled with dates and details. The bowls ranged from tiny things barely larger than teacups to substantial pieces that required 2 hands to lift. Blues, greens, reds, whites, some plain, others decorated with dragons or flowers. Ian watched her face as she examined them. "This one's imperial," he said, touching a delicate white bowl with a pale blue flush. "See the thickness? How the light comes through." Beth held it up to the window. Sure enough, the porcelain was so thin she could see her fingers through it. "It's beautiful," she said. "How many do you have?" 73. The answer came without hesitation. Of course, Ian knew the exact number. "My brother Cameron says I'm obsessed," Ian continued. "Hart thinks it's a waste of money, but Mac understands. He collects paintings the same way." "Mac being the artistic brother?" "Yes. You'll meet him soon. He's in Paris." Beth carefully replaced the bowl. "And Cameron?" "Scotland. His estate is 20 miles north. He breeds horses." Ian's voice went flat when he talked about his brothers, as though reciting facts from a book. But Beth was learning to read the small signs, the way his fingers drummed against his thigh when he was anxious, how his gaze would fix on distant objects when overwhelmed. Right now, he was staring at a point somewhere beyond her left shoulder. "Ian," she said softly, "are you all right?" His eyes snapped to her face, then away again. "Too many changes. Too fast. We can slow down." "No." His jaw set. "Hart wants to speak with us at dinner. We can't avoid him forever." Dinner at Kilmorgan was a formal affair. The dining room could seat 40, though only 3 chairs were occupied. Hart at the head of the table, Beth and Ian facing each other a few feet down. The distance felt deliberate. Footmen in livery served course after course. Soup, fish, roast, vegetables, dessert. Each dish appeared silently, was consumed, and vanished. Hart ate methodically, his attention on his food. But Beth felt his gaze flick to her between bites. Finally, during the dessert course, he spoke. "You'll need a proper wardrobe," he said. "I've arranged for a dressmaker from Edinburgh to call tomorrow." Beth's spine stiffened. "That's not necessary." "It is if you're to appear in society as Ian's wife." "I have no intention of appearing in society." Hart's eyebrows rose. "You think you can hide here indefinitely?" "I think I can live quietly without subjecting myself to the scrutiny of people who'll judge me regardless of what I wear." "Then you understand nothing about how this works." Ian's fork clattered against his plate. "Beth doesn't need your approval, Hart. She needs society's approval. Or have you forgotten what happens to Mackenzie wives who can't navigate that world?" The air in the room went cold. Beth didn't know the full story of Hart's own wife, but she'd heard enough whispers in Paris. A young woman, terrified of her husband, who died in childbirth. Cameron's wife had met an even worse end. "I'm not them," Beth said quietly. Hart's gaze fixed on her with uncomfortable intensity. "No, you're not. You're a vicar's widow with no family connections, no dowry, and a background that won't withstand close examination. The wolves will circle the moment you show your face. Let them. You don't understand what you're saying." "Don't I?" Beth leaned forward. "I grew up in Bethnal Green. My father was a con man who drank himself to death. My mother turned to prostitution out of desperation before dying of consumption. I spent years in a workhouse. I know exactly what it's like to be judged, Your Grace. The difference is, I stopped caring about those judgments a long time ago." Silence. Hart's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. "Well," he said finally, "at least you're honest. It's all I know how to be." Hart picked up his wineglass, studied it. "The dressmaker will still call tomorrow. Wear what you like afterward, but you'll need appropriate clothes for the wedding ceremony." Beth blinked. "Wedding ceremony? We're already married." "A Catholic ceremony in a Paris pension performed by a priest I'd wager Ian bribed doesn't count as a proper wedding. You'll have a Church of Scotland ceremony here, with family present. I don't need... It's not for you, it's for Ian." Hart's gaze moved to his brother, and for a moment, something almost gentle crossed his face. Ian's spent most of his life locked away, treated as less than human. He deserves a wedding where people celebrate instead of whisper, where his wife stands beside him proudly instead of hiding in shame. Can you give him that much? Beth looked at Ian. He was staring at his plate, fingers drumming that anxious rhythm. "Yes," she said. "I can do that." Hart nodded once. "Then we're done here." He stood, dropping his napkin on the table. "Ian, I need to speak with you, privately." Ian's shoulders tensed, but he rose without argument. The two men left together, Hart's hand briefly touching Ian's shoulder as they passed through the doorway. Beth sat alone in the cavernous dining room, surrounded by empty chairs and the ghost of conversations she didn't fully understand. She was beginning to realize that marrying Ian McKenzie meant navigating a family with secrets as deep and complex as Ian's collection of Ming bowls. The question was whether she'd prove fragile as porcelain, or strong enough to withstand the pressure. The next morning brought the dressmaker and 3 assistants laden with fabric samples. Beth endured hours of measuring, pinning, and discussion about necklines and sleeve lengths. The head dressmaker, a sharp-eyed woman named Mrs. Ferguson, seemed to take Beth's measure in more ways than one. "You've a good figure, my lady," she said, circling Beth with pins. "Strong shoulders. We'll want to emphasize that, not hide it." "I'm not trying to hide anything." "Good. Too many ladies think they need to look like porcelain dolls. You've got substance. We'll dress you accordingly." Beth found herself warming to the woman. The wedding dress would be ivory silk with minimal decoration, Beth's choice, over Mrs. Ferguson's protests. "At least let me add some lace," the dressmaker pleaded. "A touch of elegance." Beth relented on the lace. She also ordered several day dresses in practical fabrics, riding habits, and evening gowns. All simpler than what Mrs. Ferguson suggested, but well made and appropriate for a lord's wife. "His Grace will be pleased," Mrs. Ferguson said as she packed up. "He's very particular about the family's appearance." "His Grace can..." Beth caught herself. "His Grace will have to accept my choices." Mrs. Ferguson's lips twitched. "Yes, my lady." After the dressmaker left, Beth found Ian in his collection room. He was holding one of his bowls, turning it slowly in the light. "Do you ever worry you'll drop one?" she asked from the doorway. "No, my hands are steady." She came closer. "What are you thinking about?" "Hart wants me to read a treaty, something about trade agreements with France. He says there's language in it that might be problematic, and he needs me to memorize it exactly so he can reference it later." "That sounds tedious." "It is, but I can do it in 20 minutes, and then he'll leave me alone for a week." Ian set down the bowl and finally looked at her. Not directly. His gaze landed somewhere near her chin, but it was close enough. "I'm sorry about last night," he said. "Hart can be protective, controlling. Both, I think." Ian's mouth quirked, almost a smile. "Yes, both." Beth moved to stand beside him, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. She'd learned that Ian tolerated proximity better when he initiated it, but sometimes he needed the reminder that she was there. "Tell me about the treaty," she said. "Maybe I can help." "You can't read French." "My father was French, or claimed to be. Either way, I speak it fluently." Ian's head turned sharply. You never said that. You never asked. For a moment, Ian actually met her eyes. Full on, direct contact that made her breath catch. Then he blinked and looked away, but she'd seen it. That flash of real connection. Come with me, he said. He led her to Hart's study, where a document lay spread across the desk. Dense paragraphs in French, legal language that would make anyone's eyes cross. Ian picked it up and began reading aloud. His French was perfect. Crisp Parisian accent, flawless pronunciation. But as he read, Beth noticed him frowning. What's wrong? She asked. This section here. He pointed to a paragraph near the bottom of the second page. The wording is deliberately vague. It could be interpreted two different ways. Beth leaned in to read it. You're right. In one interpretation, it's harmless. In the other, it gives France significant advantage in disputes. Hart needs to know that. Then let's tell him. They found Hart in the library, writing letters. He looked up as they entered, eyebrows rising when he saw them together. The treaty, Ian said without preamble. Section 12, paragraph 4. The language is ambiguous. Hart set down his pen. Show me. Ian recited the entire paragraph from memory, then explained the dual interpretation. Beth added her observations about the French phrasing, how certain words carried different weight in legal contexts versus common usage. Hart listened without interrupting. When they finished, he leaned back in his chair. You're certain about this? Yes, Ian said. Hart's gaze shifted to Beth. And you speak French because... My father, he was French. Possibly aristocracy, possibly a con man, most likely both. Useful. It wasn't quite approval, but it wasn't dismissal either. Hart pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. I'll need you both to go through the entire treaty. Flag anything questionable. Can you do that today? Yes, Ian said. Good. I'm meeting with the Foreign Secretary next week. I'd rather not look like a fool. He waved them away, already writing. But as they reached the door, he spoke again. Beth. She turned. Thank you. 2 words, gruff and awkward, but genuine. You're welcome, Your Grace. She and Ian spent the rest of the afternoon in Hart's study, going through every line of the treaty. Ian read aloud, Beth translated nuances, and together they found 3 more problematic sections. It was exhausting work, but it was also the first time Beth felt useful at Kilmorgan. Not just Ian's wife, or the woman Hart was grudgingly accepting, but someone who could contribute. That evening, Hart joined them for dinner again. This time the atmosphere was less tense. The dressmaker says you're being difficult, Hart remarked as the soup course was served. The dressmaker says I have strong opinions, Beth corrected. Same thing. Is it? Hart's lips twitched, almost a smile. Mrs. Ferguson is the best in Scotland. Whatever she makes will be appropriate. I'm sure it will be lovely. They ate in companionable silence for a while. Then Hart said, Cameron will arrive next week, for the wedding. Ian's head came up. He's bringing Daniel? His son? Yes. Good. Ian actually smiled. Daniel makes everything louder. Exactly why I'm dreading it, Hart muttered. But Beth caught the fondness beneath his words. This family was strange, complicated, full of sharp edges and unspoken rules. But there was love here too, fierce, protective love that showed itself in unexpected ways. She was beginning to understand that being a McKenzie meant learning to see past the surface. Much like Ian's porcelain collection, you had to look carefully to appreciate what you were really seeing. The next morning, Beth found herself in the estate's portrait gallery, staring at a woman who looked remarkably like Ian. The painting was tucked away at the far end, smaller than the others. The subject wore a pale blue gown, Her dark red hair swept up in the fashion of 30 years ago. Her eyes were golden. His mother! Beth startled. Hart stood in the doorway, hands clasped behind his back. She's beautiful. She was. Hart moved closer to the portrait. Painted 2 years before she died. Ian has her eyes. All of us do, though his are most like hers, the exact shade. Hart studied the painting with an unreadable expression. She would have liked you. Would she? She had no patience for simpering women. Said they bored her to tears. He glanced at Beth. You don't simper. Should I take that as a compliment? Take it however you like. They stood in silence, looking at the woman who'd birthed 4 difficult sons. Beth wondered what her life had been like, married to the man whose portrait glowered from every landing. Ian told me about his father, Beth said quietly. About what happened. Hart's jaw tightened. Did he? He needed to tell someone. And you were that someone. It wasn't a question. I'm glad. He's carried it alone too long. You all have. Hart turned away from the portrait. The past is done. We don't dwell on it. But the past wasn't done. It lived in Ian's nightmares, in the way Cameron sometimes touched his scarred face, in Hart's ruthless need for control. The past was everywhere in this house. Your Grace, Beth said carefully. Ian worries about his rages, about being like his father. He's nothing like our father. I know that, but he doesn't always believe it. Hart was quiet for a long moment. Our father's rages were deliberate, calculated. He used anger as a weapon to control and terrify. Ian's anger is different. It comes from fear, from being overwhelmed, and he fights it constantly. He's terrified of hurting me, which is exactly why he won't. Hart met her eyes. Our father never feared hurting anyone. That's the difference. It was the most Hart had said to her about anything personal. Beth felt the weight of his trust in sharing it. Thank you for telling me that. He nodded once, then strode toward the door. But he paused at the threshold. The wedding. Ian wants it simple. But there are expectations. You're marrying into a ducal family. I understand. Do you? He turned back to face her. There will be people who whisper about your background, your father, your time in the workhouse. They'll question whether you're suitable. Let them question. You'll need to be strong. I am strong. Hart studied her for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked her completely. He smiled. Not the tight, controlled expression she'd seen before. An actual smile. Yes, I believe you are. After he left, Beth stood alone with the portrait. Ian's mother gazed down at her with those familiar golden eyes. I'll take care of him, Beth whispered. I promise. That afternoon, she found Ian in his collection room, carefully examining a newly acquired bowl. He held it up to the light, turning it slowly. What do you see? She asked. He didn't startle at her voice. Imperfections. Tiny bubbles in the glaze. See here? He tilted the bowl so she could look. The potter tried to hide them with extra layers, but they're still there. Does that make it less valuable? No, it makes it real. He set the bowl down with infinite care. Perfect pieces don't exist. The flaws prove it was made by human hands. Like people. He finally looked at her, his gaze skimming past hers as always. Hart told me you spoke with him. About me. I hope that's all right. It's strange. No one usually discusses me with other people. They discuss me with Hart or Cameron or Mac, but not with me present in any way. You're not a child to be managed. No, but I'm not entirely normal either. Beth moved to stand beside him, her arm brushing his. Normal is overrated. You say that because you have to. I say that because it's true. She picked up one of the bowls, feeling its weight in her hands. Tell me about this one. And he did. He told her about the dynasty that produced it, the emperor who might have drunk from it, the journey it had taken from China to London. His voice grew animated, his hands moving as he described the techniques used to create the glaze. This was Ian at his best. Passionate, knowledgeable, completely himself. You should teach, Beth said when he finished. Teach? At a university. Or write books. You know more about Chinese porcelain than anyone I've ever met. People don't take me seriously. Then make them. She set down the bowl. Write everything you know. Publish it. Let your work speak for itself. He was quiet, considering. I've thought about it, but writing is difficult. The words don't always come out right. Then dictate to someone who can write them down. To me, if you like. You'd do that? Of course. He reached for her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. The gesture was becoming familiar, natural. Beth. When I'm with you, the noise in my head quiets. Do you know what that's worth? Her throat tightened. Tell me. Everything. It's worth everything. He pulled her closer, his other hand coming up to cup her face. For a moment, his eyes met hers directly. Fully. The connection lasted only a heartbeat before his gaze slid away, but it was enough. I love you, he said. I need you to know that. I do know, and I love you too. He kissed her then, gentle and thorough. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. Cameron arrives tomorrow. I know. Are you excited? Yes, and nervous. He'll want to meet you properly. He'll have opinions. Do his opinions matter? Only if he thinks you're not good for me, then he'll be impossible. Beth laughed. I'll win him over. He's very protective. So I've heard. But I'm not afraid of your brothers. You should be. They're all terrible in their own ways. And you love them. Unfortunately. She smiled against his shoulder. Tell me about Daniel. Ian's son. Cameron's son. He's 15. Clever. Reckless. Too charming for his own good. His mother tried to kill him when he was an infant. Beth pulled back. What? She was mad. Postpartum psychosis, the doctor said later. She attacked Cameron with a knife, then went for Daniel. Cameron stopped her, but she died in the struggle. That's horrible. Daniel doesn't remember any of it. Cameron raised him alone. He's done well, considering. No wonder Cameron is protective. We're all protective. It's a McKenzie trait. We keep what's ours close. His arms tightened around her. And you're mine now. Possessive. Extremely. She should probably object to being claimed like one of his porcelain bowls, but the fierce certainty in his voice sent warmth through her chest. Then I suppose you're mine too. Yes. Good. They stood together among the centuries-old pottery, two imperfect people who'd somehow found each other. Beth thought about what Ian had said, about flaws proving something was real. Their relationship wasn't perfect. Ian would always struggle with his mind's peculiarities. She would always carry scars from her difficult childhood, but that didn't make what they had less valuable. If anything, it made it more real. The next day, Cameron McKenzie arrived in a flurry of noise and motion. Beth heard him before she saw him. His voice boomed through the entrance hall, loud and cheerful and utterly unlike Hart's controlled tones. Where's my baby brother? Ian, get down here! She found Ian already descending the stairs, a smile on his face she'd never seen before, completely unguarded, genuinely happy. Cameron stood in the hall, a mountain of a man with dark red hair and a wicked scar across his left cheek. Next to him, a lanky boy with lighter hair, and Cameron's eyes grinned up at Ian. Uncle Ian! The boy launched himself at Ian, who caught him in a bear hug. Daniel, you've grown. I'm nearly as tall as you now. Nearly doesn't count. Cameron pulled Ian into an embrace that looked like it might crack ribs. Married? I still can't believe it. Where's this woman brave enough to take you on? Beth stepped forward. Right here. Cameron's gaze swung to her, assessing. Then he smiled, wide and warm. Well, aren't you a pretty thing? He crossed to her in 2 long strides and took her hand. But instead of shaking it, he raised it to his lips. Cameron McKenzie, the better-looking brother. Debatable, Ian muttered. Beth, she said, trying not to laugh. The new wife. I can see why Ian snapped you up. Smart man. Cameron winked. Though I'm hurt he didn't ask my advice first. Your advice would have been useless, Ian said. Probably, but still. Cameron released Beth's hand and turned to the boy. This disaster is my son, Daniel. Pleased to meet you, Aunt Beth. Daniel executed a surprisingly graceful bow. Aunt Beth, I like the sound of that. Don't encourage him, Cameron said. He's already insufferable. Takes after his father. Hart's voice came from above. He descended the stairs with his usual controlled grace. Cameron, try not to break anything. Hart, try not to be an ass for 5 minutes. Impossible. It's my natural state. The brothers clasped hands. Genuine affection beneath the barbed words. Beth watched the dynamic shift. The way Ian relaxed with Cameron present. How even Hart's rigid posture loosened slightly. Dinner's in an hour, Hart said. Try to be presentable. We're always presentable, Daniel protested. You have mud on your boots. It's fashionable mud. Hart's lips twitched. Upstairs. Now. As Cameron and Daniel headed up, Ian caught Beth's hand. See? I told you they'd make everything louder. I don't mind. You will. Wait until dinner. He wasn't wrong. Dinner with Cameron and Daniel was chaos. The kind of wonderful, exhausting chaos Beth had never experienced in her quiet life before. Cameron told outrageous stories. Daniel interrupted with embellishments. Hart tried to maintain order and failed. Ian laughed, actually laughed, the sound rich and free. Beth sat back and watched them. These complicated, damaged, fierce men who loved each other despite everything. Or perhaps because of everything. Beth, Cameron's voice pulled her attention. Ian says you speak French. I do. And you're clever with languages? Moderately. She's being modest, Ian said. She caught errors in a treaty Hart missed. Did she now? Cameron looked impressed. Useful and beautiful. Ian, you've outdone yourself. I know. Where did you find her? At the opera. She was engaged to an idiot. Was? Daniel leaned forward, eyes bright. What happened to him? Ian stole her away, Hart said dryly. Excellent work, Uncle Ian. Beth felt heat rise in her cheeks. It wasn't quite that dramatic. It was exactly that dramatic, Ian said. I saw her, and I decided she was mine. Romantic, Cameron said with a grin, in a slightly unhinged way. All the best romances are slightly unhinged. True enough. The conversation flowed around her, easy and warm. Beth caught Ian's eye across the table. He smiled at her, that private smile that was hers alone. This was family, real family, the kind that didn't come from blood alone, but from choice. From showing up, from caring, from staying even when things were difficult. She belonged here. Not because of Ian's last name or Hart's grudging acceptance, but because she'd chosen them, and they'd chosen her back. Later that night, Ian found her on the terrace looking out at the dark gardens. Too much? No, it was perfect. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, chin resting on her shoulder. Cameron likes you. How can you tell? He threatened to steal you away if I'm not good to you. That's Cameron's version of approval. Beth laughed. And Daniel? Completely charmed. He asked if you had any sisters. Poor boy. Tell him I'm an only child. They stood together in comfortable silence. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of heather from the hills. 3 more weeks, Ian said quietly. Until the wedding. Until you're really mine. Officially, legally in front of everyone. I'm already yours. I know. But I want the world to know it too. She turned in his arms to face him. Possessive. Extremely. She kissed him, slow and sweet. When they broke apart, she said, I wouldn't have it any other way. Ian's bedroom at the Grosvenor Square house was different from his suite at Kilmorgan. Smaller. More intimate. The kind of space designed for one person who didn't need much. Except now there were 2 of them. Beth stood at the window, still in her dinner gown, watching the London street below. Gas lamps cast pools of yellow light on the pavement. A carriage rattled past, wheels loud on cobblestones. You're thinking too loudly, Ian said from behind her. Am I? I can feel it from here. What's wrong? She turned. He'd removed his jacket and waistcoat, his shirt open at the throat. The sight of him never failed to make her breath catch. Nothing's wrong. I'm just adjusting. He crossed to her, movements deliberate. To what? All of this. Them. Being part of something bigger than just us. His hands settled on her shoulders, warm through the fabric. Too much? No, but it's new. She paused. I've been alone for so long. Even with Mrs. Barrington, I was alone. And before that, I know. Of course he did. Ian understood loneliness in ways most people never would. The asylum had taught him that particular lesson early and brutally. It's strange, she said. Wanting something and having it be overwhelming when you finally get it. Cameron's loud. That startled a laugh from her. Yes, he is. Daniel's worse. And Hart. Ian shook his head. Hart takes up space just by existing. But you love them. Unfortunately, another laugh. She leaned back against him, feeling the solid warmth of his chest. They love you too, even when they're being impossible. Especially then. They stood together, watching London settle into night. Beth felt the tension gradually leave her shoulders. This was what she'd needed. Not reassurance exactly, but acknowledgement. Ian understood without her having to explain. Bed, he said eventually. Romantic. I'm attempting to be practical. How's that working? Poorly. You're distracting. She turned in his arms. Am I? His eyes met hers, that direct gaze he saved for her alone. Always. The kiss started gentle, sweet. Then Ian's hands tightened on her waist and everything shifted. Heat bloomed between them, immediate and consuming. He walked her backward until her legs hit the bed. She went willingly, pulling him down with her. The buttons, she gasped against his mouth. This dress has 1,000 buttons. I know, I counted earlier. Did you? I was bored during dessert. She laughed, the sound turning into a moan as his mouth found her throat. His fingers worked the tiny pearl buttons with surprising dexterity for someone who claimed to hate them. Cool air hit her skin as the fabric parted. Then Ian's warm hands followed, tracing the curve of her spine, the dip of her waist. Beautiful, he murmured. So beautiful. She helped him with the rest, the dress pooling on the floor in a whisper of silk. Corset next, the laces loosening under his practiced fingers. You've gotten good at this, she observed. Practice. Lots of practice? Obsessive practice. I memorized the pattern. Of course he had. Ian approached everything with the same intense focus, including her. Finally, she was down to her chemise, thin lawn against overheated skin. Ian's shirt joined her dress on the floor, then his trousers, then nothing separated them except want and the rapidly shrinking space between. He pulled her onto his lap, her thighs bracketing his hips. The position made her gasp, made her acutely aware of every point where their bodies touched. I love you, he said, hands spanning her waist. I know I say it too much, but I can't help it. It builds up inside until I have to let it out or I'll explode. You could never say it too much. I counted earlier. 27 times today. Beth bit her lip against a smile. You counted? I count everything. You know this. Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you, Beth McKenzie. My wife, mine. She kissed him, swallowing the words, making them part of her. His hands urged her closer, positioned her just right. Then he was inside her, filling her completely. They moved together, finding their rhythm. Slow at first, savouring. Then faster as need overtook patience. Ian's forehead pressed against hers, his breathing harsh and uneven. Look at me, she whispered. He did. Golden eyes locked with hers, pupils blown wide. The intimacy of it stole her breath. This was what she'd been missing her whole life. Not just the physical pleasure, though that was considerable, but the connection, the absolute certainty of being seen and known and wanted anyway. Ian's hands tightened on her hips, guiding her movements. She rode him harder, chasing the heat building low in her belly. His thumb found the sensitive bundle of nerves between her legs and she shattered. He followed moments later, face buried in her shoulder, her name a prayer on his lips. Afterwards, they lay tangled together, sweat cooling on their skin. Beth traced idle patterns on Ian's chest, feeling his heartbeat slow under her palm. 28, he said drowsily. That makes 28 times today. She laughed softly. Keep counting. I'll never complain. The wedding preparations began in earnest the next morning. Beth had assumed it would be a simple affair. She'd been wrong. Hart's hired a planner, Ian announced at breakfast. He's what? A woman who organises society events. She's arriving this afternoon. Beth set down her teacup. Why? Because Hart's involved now, which means everything must be perfect. It's our wedding, not a state dinner. Ian's expression said he saw no difference. Try telling Hart that. She did try. Hart listened with the patient expression of someone humouring a child. This wedding represents the family, he said. It needs to be done properly. Properly or extravagantly. Both. Ian and I don't need. What you need is irrelevant. This is about what's expected. Beth opened her mouth to argue. Then she saw Ian's face. He looked resigned but not unhappy. This mattered to Hart, and what mattered to Hart mattered to Ian. She sighed. Fine, but I'm drawing the line at swans. Swans? Or doves? Or any kind of livestock? Hart's lips twitched. Noted. The planner arrived promptly at 2. Mrs. Whitmore was a formidable woman in her 50s, dressed in severe black, carrying an enormous ledger. Lady Ian, she said, the title making Beth flinch slightly. We have much to discuss. That proved to be an understatement. Mrs. Whitmore had opinions about everything. The flowers, the menu, the music, the guest list, the ceremony itself. She produced sketches and fabric samples and detailed timelines. Beth's head spun. The invitations must go out within the week, Mrs. Whitmore said. I've taken the liberty of drafting language for your approval. She handed over a cream cardstock. Beth read it, blinked, read it again. This is very formal. Of course. The Duke of Kilmorgan's brother is remarrying. The event requires appropriate gravitas. But we're already married. A technicality. This is the wedding that matters. Beth looked at Ian for help. He shrugged, clearly out of his depth. What do you think? She asked him. I think Mrs. Whitmore is terrifying and we should do whatever she says. Mrs. Whitmore's expression didn't change, but Beth could have sworn she saw approval in the woman's eyes. Very wise, Lord Ian. Now, about the ceremony location. 2 hours later, Beth's head throbbed. They'd made decisions about things she'd never known required decisions. The specific shade of white for the tablecloths, the type of wax for the candles, the exact angle of the floral arrangements. "Is this normal?" she asked Ian when Mrs. Whitmore finally left. "I have no idea. I've never done this before." "Neither have I. Well, I have, but nothing like this." Her first wedding had been in a tiny parish church, Thomas in borrowed formal wear, Beth in her best dress, a handful of witnesses and a simple ceremony. Perfect in its simplicity. This would be different, grander, more public. She wasn't sure how she felt about that. "Having second thoughts?" Ian asked quietly. "No, just adjusting." Again. He pulled her close. "We could elope, go to Scotland, find a blacksmith, be done in an hour. Hart would murder us both. Probably. But we'd die married." She laughed despite herself. "No, we'll do this properly. For Hart, for the family." "You're certain?" "I'm certain I want to marry you. The rest is just details. Very expensive details. Hart's paying. Let him indulge." Ian kissed her forehead. "You're being remarkably gracious about this." "I'm choosing my battles. If Hart wants to throw us an elaborate wedding, fine, but I'm still refusing the swans." The next week passed in a blur of fittings and tastings and consultations. Beth met with florists and musicians and caterers. She approved seating charts and menu selections and decoration schemes. It was exhausting, but it was also oddly touching, because underneath all the fuss and formality, she could see what Hart was really doing. He was welcoming her into the family, publicly, unmistakably. This wedding wasn't just about her and Ian. It was Hart's way of telling the world that Beth McKenzie mattered, that she was one of them now. The realization made her eyes sting. "You're crying," Ian observed one evening as they reviewed invitation proofs. "No, I'm not." "Your eyes are wet. Allergies." "You don't have allergies." She set down the invitation. "I'm being sentimental. It's embarrassing." "Why?" "Because I'm crying over wedding invitations. That's absurd." Ian studied her with that focused intensity he brought to everything. "You're crying because you're happy." "Yes. That's not absurd. That's..." He paused, searching for the word. "Nice. It's nice that you're happy." She laughed, wiping her eyes. "Nice? I'm not good with feelings words. You know this." "You're better than you think." He reached across the table, lacing his fingers through hers. "I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you said yes. I'm glad we're doing this again, even though it's excessive and Hart's being overbearing. I'm glad too." They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked. Outside, London settled into evening. Inside, surrounded by invitation proofs and seating charts and all the complicated machinery of an elaborate wedding, Beth felt perfectly content. Cameron and Daniel returned 3 days before the ceremony. They brought chaos with them. "We found you a wedding gift," Daniel announced, grinning. Beth eyed him warily. "Should I be concerned?" "Probably," Ian muttered. Cameron laughed. "It's not that bad. Show her, Daniel." Daniel produced a small box. Inside was a delicate porcelain bowl. Ming Dynasty, if Beth's recent education served her correctly. Dragons chased each other around the rim, their scales picked out in cobalt blue. "It's beautiful," she breathed. 16th century, Cameron said. "Reign of Zhengde. Ian's been looking for one like this for years." "How did you—" "Found a dealer in Edinburgh. Paid through the nose, but it's the real thing." Beth looked at Ian. His face had gone still, the way it did when he was feeling too much to express. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You're welcome. Now you owe me a favour." "What kind of favour?" "Haven't decided yet. I'll let you know." That evening, Ian added the bowl to his collection with almost reverential care. Beth watched him position it on the shelf, adjusting it twice until the placement satisfied him. Perfect? She asked. Perfect. She moved behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Cameron loves you very much. I know. Even if he shows it by giving you porcelain and demanding future favours. Especially then. They stood together in the collection room, surrounded by centuries of carefully preserved beauty. Beth rested her cheek against Ian's back, feeling his breathing, his warmth. 3 more days. Then the ceremony, the reception, the public declaration of what they'd already chosen privately. She couldn't wait, but she also wanted to hold on to this. These quiet moments before everything changed again. Just the two of them, together, in the peaceful silence Ian craved. I love you, she said softly. 29. She smiled. You're still counting? Always. The wedding was scheduled for 2 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. Beth woke at dawn anyway. Ian was already gone from the bed. She found him in his collection room, standing motionless before the new dragon bowl. Couldn't sleep, she asked. Didn't try. He glanced at her. You should rest. Can't. She moved beside him. Nervous? No. Yes. I don't know. She studied his profile. The tension in his jaw, the way his fingers tapped against his thigh. What are you thinking about? Everything. Nothing. The usual chaos. That's not helpful. My brain isn't helpful. He turned to face her fully. I keep thinking about all the ways today could go wrong. Such as? I could have one of my episodes. Hart could say something that sets me off. Fellows could object when they ask if anyone knows any reason we shouldn't marry. The church could catch fire. A meteor could strike London. You've catastrophized thoroughly. It's a skill. She took his hands. None of those things will happen. You can't know that. I can know the meteor is unlikely. Unlikely isn't impossible. She kissed him. Even if everything goes wrong, we'll still be married by the end of the day. That's what matters. He pulled her closer. Promise? I promise. They stood together until the house began stirring around them. Servants moving through halls, preparing for the controlled chaos ahead. I should dress, Beth said reluctantly. Not yet. Isabella will have my head if I'm late for hair and makeup. 5 more minutes. She gave him 10, then 20. Finally, Isabella herself appeared, hands on hips. Absolutely not, she declared. Beth, you're coming with me. Ian, go terrorize Hart or something. I don't terrorize Hart. Then start. He could use the humbling. She grabbed Beth's hand. Come along. We have work to do. The next 3 hours passed in a blur. Isabella's borrowed lady's maid transformed Beth's hair into an elaborate updo, weaving in tiny white flowers. The wedding dress, when they finally laced her into it, fit perfectly. Cream silk with delicate lace sleeves, simpler than the monstrosity Hart had initially suggested, but elegant enough to satisfy his standards. You look beautiful, Isabella said softly. Beth examined herself in the mirror. The woman looking back seemed like a stranger. Polished, refined, every inch a lady. Nothing like the workhouse girl or the vicar's widow. I don't recognize myself, she admitted. Good. That's growth. Isabella adjusted a flower. The girl who married Thomas was lovely, but she wasn't this woman. This woman has survived Mrs. Barrington, Mather, Fellows, a murder investigation, and the entire McKenzie family. She's extraordinary. I'm terrified. Also good. Means you're paying attention. Katie appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. The carriages are ready, my lady. Beth's stomach lurched. All ready? Time doesn't stop for cold feet, Isabella said cheerfully. Let's go marry you off properly. The church was packed. Beth hadn't expected that. She'd thought perhaps a few dozen guests, close friends and family. Instead, every pew was filled with London society, all craning their necks to glimpse the mysterious widow who'd captured Lord Ian McKenzie. Hart stood at the front, immaculate in a formal dress. He caught Beth's eye and nodded, almost smiled. Then Ian turned around. He looked magnificent. Dark suit perfectly tailored, hair brushed back from his forehead. But what stopped her breath was his expression, the way he looked at her, like she was the only person in the world. The organ began. Beth moved down the aisle on Cameron's arm, Daniel grinning from his seat, Max sketching something in a small notebook, Fellows sitting stiffly beside his mother, both looking uncomfortable but present. Then she reached Ian, and nothing else mattered. The vicar began the ceremony. Beth barely heard the words. She was too focused on Ian's face, the way his fingers gripped hers, the tiny tells that showed his nervousness, the slight tension around his eyes, the way his thumb traced circles on her palm. "Do you, Ian Malcolm Mackenzie, take this woman?" "Yes." The vicar paused. "I haven't finished the question yet, my lord." "Doesn't matter. The answer is yes." Scattered laughter rippled through the church. Even the vicar smiled. "Very well. And do you, Elizabeth Ann Villiers, take this man?" "I do. Yes, absolutely." More laughter. Ian's lips quirked. The vicar gave up on formality. "Right then. The rings, Hart produced them. Simple gold bands, no elaborate designs. Ian slid one onto Beth's finger with steady hands. She did the same for him, her fingers trembling slightly. "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Again. For the second time, technically. But this one counts more because there's witnesses and proper paperwork." "Kiss her already," Cameron called out. Ian didn't need encouragement. He pulled Beth close and kissed her thoroughly, deeply, completely inappropriate for a church. The congregation erupted in applause and cheers. When they finally broke apart, Beth was breathless. That was necessary. I was going to say perfect. Also that, they walked back down the aisle together. Outside, sunshine broke through London's perpetual clouds. Photographers jostled for position. Guests poured out behind them, chattering and laughing. Beth turned to Ian. "We did it. Again. Properly this time." The first time was proper. This one just has better witnesses. Hart's house had been transformed. The ballroom glittered with candles and flowers. Tables groaned under elaborate dishes. Musicians tuned instruments in the corner. "This is excessive," Ian muttered. "Your brother doesn't do anything by halves." "I noticed." They greeted guests for what felt like hours. Beth's face hurt from smiling. But she couldn't stop. Every congratulation, every well-wish felt like validation, proof that this was real. Dinner was served at 5. Hart stood to give a speech that was mercifully brief and surprisingly warm. Cameron followed with something longer and considerably more inappropriate, earning scandalized gasps from the older guests and roaring laughter from everyone else. Mac raised his glass. "To Ian and Beth, may they be exactly as happy as they deserve to be, which, knowing them, is considerable." "Hear, hear," the toasts continued. Daniel told an embarrassing story about Ian and a fishing accident. Isabella waxed poetic about true love conquering all obstacles. Even fellows stood, awkward but sincere, wishing them well. Then the musicians began playing. Hart led Beth to the floor for the first dance. "You look terrified," he observed. "I've never danced at a ball before. Follow my lead. I won't let you stumble." He was true to his word, guiding her through the steps with easy grace. Around them, other couples joined. Mac and Isabella, carefully maintaining distance. Cameron dancing with some lord's daughter, making her laugh. Daniel attempting to impress a group of young ladies. "Thank you," Beth said quietly. "For what?" "All of this. The wedding, The invitations, everything. Ian is my brother. You're family now. This is what family does. Still, thank you. The song ended. Hart bowed and stepped back, allowing Ian to claim her. My turn, Ian said. You dance? Badly. But you're stuck with me now. They moved together. Less gracefully than she danced with Hart, but infinitely more perfect. Ian held her close, unbothered by the watching crowd. Happy? He asked, deliriously. Good, that's the point. They danced through 3 songs before Ian's patience for crowds wore thin. He pulled her out onto the terrace, into blessed quiet. Better? Beth asked. Much. He leaned against the stone balustrade. I lasted longer than I expected. You did wonderfully. I had motivation. You look beautiful tonight. You've said that 4 times. It's still true. She moved into his arms, resting her head on his chest. Inside, the party continued without them. Out here, under the stars, it was just the 2 of them. I love you, she said. 30, she smiled against his shirt. Will you keep counting forever? Probably. I don't mind. They stayed there until Cameron found them, grinning wickedly. You can't hide all night. People want to congratulate you. They can congratulate us from a distance, Ian said. Not how it works. Come on. Hart's getting twitchy about propriety. Reluctantly, they returned to the ballroom. More dancing, more toasts, more well-wishes from people Beth barely knew. It was overwhelming and wonderful and exhausting all at once. Near midnight, Isabella pulled her aside. You should change soon. Change? For the departure. You are planning to depart, aren't you? Beth had honestly forgotten. I suppose we should. Where are you going? Ian's house in Scotland. We're leaving tomorrow morning. Not tonight. Ian wanted one quiet night first. At his London house, just us. Isabella smiled knowingly. Wise man. The changing was another production. The elaborate wedding dress exchanged for a simpler travelling suit. Hair let down from its complicated arrangement. By the time Beth emerged, she felt more like herself again. Ian was waiting, already changed, looking relieved to be out of formal wear. Ready? He asked. More than. They said their goodbyes. Hart shook Ian's hand, pulled him into a brief embrace, kissed Beth's cheek and whispered something about taking care of his brother. Cameron bear-hugged them both. Mac gave a salute. Daniel whooped. Fellows actually smiled. A real smile, not his usual skeptical smirk. Then they were in the carriage, alone finally, rolling through dark London streets. Beth exhaled. That was a lot. I was going to say magical, but a lot works too. Ian pulled her close. It's done now. We're properly married. Hart's satisfied. Society's satisfied. Everyone's satisfied. Are you satisfied? He kissed her temple. I've been satisfied since the first ceremony. This was just for show. Expensive show. Hart's money, not mine. They lapsed into comfortable silence. Outside, London passed by. Familiar streets, familiar landmarks. But everything felt different now. New. At Ian's townhouse, Curry greeted them with barely concealed delight. Congratulations, my lord, my lady. Everything's prepared. Thank you, Curry. Will you be needing anything else tonight? No, we're fine. Curry nodded and disappeared. Beth looked around the entrance hall. She'd been here before, of course, but now it felt different. This was home now. Hers and Ian's. Want to see something? Ian asked. Always. He led her upstairs past the bedroom to a room she'd never entered. When he opened the door, she gasped. It was a studio, light, airy, set up with an easel and paints and everything an artist could need. For your drawing lessons, Ian said. Mac helped me set it up. He says you have potential. I've had 2 lessons. He says that's enough to judge. Beth walked around the room, touching brushes, examining paint tubes. This is too much. It's exactly enough. You said you wanted to learn. Now you can. She turned to face him. You listened. I always listen, even when I seem like I'm not. She crossed the room and kissed him. Soft at first, then deeper. His hands found her waist, pulling her closer. When they finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. Welcome home, he whispered. I'm already there. He smiled. That rare, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. Then he took her hand and led her to their bedroom, closing the door on the rest of the world. Morning came too early. Beth woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, momentarily disoriented. Then she remembered. Married. Again. Properly this time, according to everyone else. Ian was already awake, propped on one elbow, watching her. Not looking away when she opened her eyes, but actually holding her gaze. How long have you been staring? A while. Creepy. You're beautiful when you sleep. Now I know you're lying. I drool. A little. It's charming. She laughed and swatted him. He caught her wrist, kissed her palm, then pulled her against him. They had a train to catch, eventually. An hour later, properly awake and dressed, they joined curry for breakfast. He'd outdone himself. Eggs, bacon, fresh bread, jam, coffee that actually tasted like coffee instead of burnt water. You'll spoil us, Beth said. That's the idea, my lady. We're leaving today. I know, already packed. Of course you have. Ian was quiet, eating methodically. Beth recognized the signs. He was thinking hard about something, working through some problem only he could see. What's wrong? She asked. Nothing. Ian. He set down his fork. I've been thinking about Hart. What about him? He looked tired last night. More than usual. He organized an entire wedding in 3 weeks. Of course he's tired. It's more than that. Beth waited. Ian would explain when he was ready, or he wouldn't. Pushing never helped. He's lonely, Ian finally said. He surrounds himself with people, but he's alone. He has all of you. It's not the same. Beth understood. She'd felt that way for years, surrounded by people in Mrs. Barrington's house, but fundamentally isolated, until Thomas, until Ian. Maybe he'll find someone, she offered. He already found someone. She married someone else. Eleanor Ramsay, Ian nodded. He won't talk about her. None of us will around him. But I remember when she broke it off. He was different after, harder. People do terrible things to each other, Beth said quietly, even when they love each other. Sometimes, especially then. Ian looked at her, really looked, that direct gaze that still took her breath away. I won't do terrible things to you. I know. I'll try not to. Ian, you're not. I know what I am, what I could be, but I'll spend every day trying to be better. For you. Her throat tightened. You're already everything I need. I'm mad. So am I, a little. We match. He smiled then, small but real. We do. After breakfast, the chaos of departure, trunks and cases, Curry directing footmen, Katie fluttering about, making sure nothing was forgotten. Beth felt like she was forgetting something crucial, but couldn't identify what. My books, Ian said suddenly. What books? The ones I brought from Kilorglan. They're in the library. I'll get them, Curry offered. No, I need to choose which ones. He disappeared. Beth used the time to do a final check of their room, though everything was already packed. She found herself touching things. The bedpost, the window frame. Silly, really. This was just Ian's London house. They'd be back. But it felt like leaving something behind, some version of herself who'd arrived here confused and overwhelmed and unsure. She was different now, stronger, maybe, more certain. When Ian returned, arms full of books, she smiled at him. He looked puzzled. What? Nothing. Just happy. Good. He dumped the books on a chair for Curry to pack. Ready? Yes. The journey north took 2 days. They stopped overnight in Edinburgh, at a hotel that catered to wealthy travellers. Separate rooms, technically, for propriety, as if anyone believed they'd use them. Beth loved Edinburgh immediately. The castle looming over everything, the old town's twisted streets, the new town's elegant Georgian squares. She wanted to explore, but Ian was anxious to keep moving. We'll come back, he promised. Properly, when we have time. When will that be? Soon. It wasn't soon. She knew that. Ian was always busy with something, Hart's projects or his own collections, or simply managing the overwhelming flood of information his brain couldn't stop processing. But she appreciated the lie, the intention behind it. The second day of travel, the landscape changed. Flatter near Edinburgh, but gradually rising into hills. Green everywhere, impossibly green, dotted with sheep and stone walls and tiny villages. It's beautiful, Beth said. Wait! They rounded a curve, and suddenly mountains appeared. Real mountains, not hills pretending. Sharp peaks cutting into grey sky, still snow-capped despite summer's warmth. Oh. Yes. The train climbed higher, through passes, along ridges, past locks that reflected clouds like mirrors. Beth pressed against the window, not wanting to miss anything. Ian watched her instead of the landscape. She felt his gaze, but didn't turn. Let him look. She was looking at Scotland, at this wild place that was somehow home now, home. They arrived at the local station near sunset. A small platform, barely deserving the name. One building, one attendant who tipped his cap and helped with luggage. A carriage waited. Not Hart's ostentatious ducal coach, but something simpler, comfortable but understated. The driver knew Ian, greeted him warmly in Scots so thick Beth barely understood. Aye, my lord. Good to see you back. And this'll be the lady. My wife, Beth. Welcome, my lady. You'll like it here. Quiet but bonny. I'm sure I will. The drive took another hour. Winding roads, more sheep, scattered cottages with smoke curling from chimneys. The air smelled different. Clean, with hints of heather and peat and something indefinably Scottish. Then they crested a hill, and there it was. Ian's house. Not Kilorglan's overwhelming grandeur. Something else entirely. A manor house, yes, but human-scaled. Built from local stone that glowed amber in the evening light. 3 stories, maybe 40 rooms. Large by any normal measure, tiny compared to the ducal palace. It's perfect, Beth said. Ian looked relieved. You think so? Absolutely perfect. The staff lined up to greet them. Fewer than at Kilorglan, but still more than Beth expected. Housekeeper, butler, cook, maids, footman, groundskeeper. All local, all clearly devoted to Ian. Mrs. MacLeod, the housekeeper, took charge immediately. Grey-haired, sharp-eyed, built like someone who'd weathered every storm and emerged stronger. Welcome home, my lord. And my lady, we're that pleased to have ye. Everything's ready. Thank you, Mrs. MacLeod. You'll be wanting supper? Just something light. It's been a long journey. I'll see to it. Katie, you come with me. I'll show you where things are. Katie followed obediently. Curry was already directing footmen with luggage, somehow knowing exactly where everything should go despite never having been here. Beth and Ian stood in the entrance hall, suddenly alone. The house felt alive around them, warm, welcoming. Want the tour? Ian asked. Tomorrow. Tonight I just want to sit. Drawing rooms this way. He led her through. The house was beautiful. Not fashionable beautiful, but comfortable beautiful. Worn carpets, faded curtains, furniture that had been used and loved, books everywhere, art that was probably valuable but displayed carelessly for pleasure rather than prestige. Hart hates this place, Ian said. Says it's shabby. It's not shabby, it's lived in. That's what I told him. They settled in the drawing room. Someone had lit a fire despite summer warmth, and Beth appreciated it. The Highland evening had a chill. Tell me about this place, she said. Not much to tell. My grandfather built it. Younger son couldn't inherit. Bought land up here instead. Made money in shipping. Invested well. Left it to my father, who never used it. Too far from London. Hart gave it to me when I left the asylum. Gave it? He offered Kilorglan. I chose this. Why? Ian stared into the fire. Because no one else wanted it. Because it was quiet. Because I could breathe here. Beth understood. After years locked away, after the oppressive grandeur of his father's house, this modest manor must have felt like freedom. And now it's ours, she said. Ours. They sat in comfortable silence until Mrs. MacLeod announced supper. Simple food, beautifully prepared. Soup, bread, cold meat, cheese. They ate in the small dining room rather than the formal one. This is nice, Beth said. Intimate. We'll use the big room when Hart visits. He insists on formality. When will that be? Not for a while, I hope. He's busy with Parliament. And Cameron? Cameron hates leaving his horses. We'll see him at Christmas, maybe. Mac? Ian's expression shifted. Mac's unpredictable. He might show up tomorrow or not for years. And Isabella? She won't come if Mac's here. That's ridiculous. That's their marriage. Beth wanted to argue, but held back. Ian had asked her not to meddle. She'd try, no promises. After supper, Ian showed her to their room. It faced east, catching morning sun. Smaller than London's room, but brighter. Someone had put fresh flowers on the dresser. This was my mother's room, Ian said, when she visited. Before his father killed her. Beth heard the unspoken words. We can use a different room if you'd prefer. No, I like it here. She would have liked you. You think? She was kind. You're kind. She would have approved. Beth touched his face. Thank you for telling me. That night they made love slowly, carefully. The room felt sacred somehow, blessed by the memory of someone who'd suffered, but left love behind anyway. Afterward, wrapped in blankets, Beth asked the question that had been nagging her. What happened to your father? I know he died, but how? Ian was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Hunting accident, he finally said. His horse threw him, broke his neck. You don't sound sad. I'm not. Hart found him. I think Hart was relieved too. Did anyone mourn him? The estate mourned the Duke. Nobody mourned the man. That's terrible. That's accurate. She held him closer. His father's legacy was violence and fear. But Ian was breaking that pattern. Every day, every choice, he proved he was different. I love you, she said. I know. Say it back. I love you. Again. I love you, Beth McKenzie. The name still startled her. McKenzie. She was a McKenzie now. Part of this complicated, damaged, loving family that had somehow adopted her. Morning arrived with birdsong. Loud birdsong. The kind that suggested Scotland took its birds seriously. Beth groaned and pulled the pillow over her head. Ian laughed. Welcome to country life. What time is it? Early. Too early. We could go back to sleep. But they didn't. The day was too bright, too new. Beth wanted to see everything. After breakfast, Ian gave her the proper tour. The house was larger than it appeared from outside. rooms tucked into unexpected corners. Library, music room, conservatory, morning room, countless bedrooms. How many rooms exactly? Beth asked. 43. I counted once when I was bored. You were bored enough to count rooms. It was a long winter. Outside was even better. Gardens that rambled rather than manicured. A stream running through the property. Stables, though Ian kept few horses here. Woods beyond, perfect for walking. Can we explore? Beth asked. Tomorrow. Today you should rest. I'm not tired. You're recovering. Don't push it. Her side still ached sometimes. The stab wound had healed but left her weaker than she liked. She hated admitting it. Fine, but tomorrow. Tomorrow. They spent the afternoon in the library. Ian showed her his collections. Books, of course, but also maps, scientific instruments, odd mechanical contraptions he'd built or acquired. What's this? Beth picked up something that looked like brass clockwork. Orrery. Shows planetary motion. Does it work? He wound it up. Tiny planets began orbiting a central sun, each moving at different speeds. That's remarkable. Mac made it, before everything went wrong. Beth watched the planets spin. They still love each other. I know, but they can't fix it. Some things break too thoroughly. She looked at him. You don't believe that. I believe it about them, but not us. We're different. We chose each other knowing everything. They fell in love pretending. It was perceptive, uncomfortably so. Maybe Ian was right. Maybe some damage couldn't be repaired. But she wasn't ready to accept that yet. That evening, Curry presented Ian with accumulated correspondence. Letters from Hart, from Cameron, from estate managers and business associates. Ian read through them methodically, his face revealing nothing. Problem? Beth asked. Hart wants me back in London next month. For what? Parliamentary session. He needs me to spy. Remember, there's a difference. Is there? Ian set down the letters. He needs accurate information. I provide it, that's all. That's all? What are you asking? Beth wasn't sure. Something about Hart using Ian bothered her. Had always bothered her. But Ian didn't see it as use. He saw it as purpose. Nothing, sorry. You think he exploits me? No. Yes, maybe. I don't know. Ian pulled her onto his lap, the chair protesting slightly. Beth, I need to be useful. After years of being treated as broken, I need to matter. Hart gives me that. You matter anyway. To you. To him. But to myself. The work helps. She understood then. It wasn't about Hart at all. It was about Ian proving to himself that his mind was gift, not curse. All right. We'll go to London when needed. Thank you. But we're coming back here after. Always. The days developed rhythm. Mornings in the garden or walking the grounds. Afternoons in the library or music room. Evenings by the fire. Simple routines that felt profound in their ordinariness. Beth started painting. Mac had been right. She did have some talent. Nothing brilliant, but enough to enjoy it. She painted the mountains, the gardens, Ian when he sat still long enough. You're making me look noble, he complained once. You are noble. I'm mad. Those aren't mutually exclusive. He didn't argue further. A month into their Highland residence, a letter arrived from Fellows. Brief, almost curt, but underneath the formal language Beth detected warmth. He's coming to terms with it, she said. With what? Being a McKenzie. He'll never admit it. He doesn't have to. He's still coming to Christmas. Hart will make him. Hart can't make Fellows do anything. He's choosing to come. Ian considered this. Maybe. Definitely. She was right. When Christmas came, Fellows appeared, awkward but present, bringing his mother, who cried when Hart embraced her. Decades of abandonment forgiven in a moment. But that was months away yet. Now was summer, and Scotland, and learning to be married not for show, but for real. Some days were harder than others. Ian had his moods, times when his mind spiraled and he couldn't break free. Beth learned to recognize the signs, the temple rubbing, the distant stare, the way he'd retreat into silence. She learned to help, sometimes with touch, sometimes with space, sometimes just sitting nearby, a quiet presence while his thoughts settled, and he learned her rhythms too. When she needed to talk, when she needed quiet, when her past rose up and threatened to drown her. They were learning each other. Not the courtship version, but the real thing. The daily negotiation of two people building a life. It wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. One afternoon in late August, Beth found Ian in his collection room, staring at a bowl he'd recently acquired. Not examining it, just staring. Ian, no response. She approached slowly. His hands were trembling. Ian, look at me. His eyes found hers, then skittered away, but not before she saw the fear. Tell me. I can't remember. Her stomach dropped. Remember what? Yesterday. Parts of it are missing. This was new. His memory never failed. Ever. What parts? The afternoon. I remember breakfast. Then reading in the library. Then suddenly it was evening and I was standing here, and I don't know how I got here or what happened in between. His voice cracked on the last words. Beth took his hands. They were ice cold despite the summer warmth. Has this happened before? No, never. My memory is perfect. It's the one thing that's always worked. Maybe you were just absorbed in thought, lost track of time. I don't lose time. I account for every second. I can tell you what I was doing at any moment of any day for the past decade. But yesterday is just blank. She could see him spiraling, the foundation of his identity crumbling. We'll figure it out. What if I'm getting worse? What if the madness is progressing? You're not mad. I was declared legally insane by a commission of doctors. Those doctors were idiots. Were they? Beth pulled him down to sit beside her. The afternoon sun streamed through windows, illuminating dust motes in the air. Everything looked so normal. How could everything look normal when Ian was falling apart? Listen to me. One gap in memory doesn't mean anything. Everyone has moments they don't fully recall. Not me. I'm not everyone. Maybe that's the problem. You've put so much pressure on being perfect that one human moment feels like failure. He pulled away, started pacing. You don't understand. My memory is who I am. Without it, I'm just broken. You're not broken with it. You're not broken without it. You're just Ian. Just Ian isn't enough. The words hung between them. Beth stood, crossed to him, made him face her. Just Ian is everything. To me, to your brothers, to everyone who actually knows you. They need what I can do. No, they need you. The work is just work. But she could see he didn't believe her. Not really. That night, he barely slept. She woke several times to find him staring at the ceiling, hands clenched. Tell me what you're thinking. I'm trying to remember, forcing it. But there's nothing there. Stop forcing. I can't. Ian, what if it happens again? What if next time it's longer? What if I forget days, weeks? What if I wake up one morning and don't know who you are? That won't happen. You don't know that. He was right. She didn't. 3 days later, it happened again. This time he lost a morning. Woke up at midday with no recollection of the hours since dawn. Beth found him in the library, methodically going through everything he might have done, looking for clues to his own actions. I must have come down here. My book is moved. But I don't remember reading. I don't remember anything. His voice was steady, but she heard the terror underneath. We should see a doctor. No. Ian, No doctors. They'll say I'm deteriorating. They'll recommend the asylum. No one's sending you anywhere. Hart could. He's done it before. That was different. You were a child. Your father was alive. Hart has the authority. As Juke, he could have me committed any time. Beth hadn't considered this. The legal reality of Ian's situation. He wouldn't. If he thought it was for my own good, he absolutely would. She couldn't argue. Hart's protective instincts had led him to questionable choices before. Then we don't tell him. We handle this ourselves. How? Good question. We keep a journal, document everything, look for patterns. Maybe the gaps have triggers we can identify. It was something. Better than nothing. They started that day. Beth wrote down everything Ian did, everything he said, looking for anything unusual before the memory gaps. Nothing obvious appeared. The gaps continued. Never long. A few hours here, a morning there, but consistent. Every few days, another piece of time would vanish. Ian grew quieter, more withdrawn, the fear constant in his eyes now. What if I hurt someone during these gaps? What if I do something terrible and don't remember? You wouldn't. How do you know? I don't know. If I can't remember, how can I be sure? Beth had no answer. She started following him during his waking hours, staying close enough to observe, but trying not to make it obvious. What she saw troubled her. During the gaps, Ian wasn't violent or destructive. He moved through the house normally, but his face was blank, like watching someone sleepwalk. He'd perform routine tasks, making tea, reading, walking the dogs, but with none of his usual focused intensity. Like he was there, but not there. She tried talking to him during one episode. He responded, but the answers were vague, automatic. None of his usual precision. When he came back to himself, he had no memory of the conversation. I made tea? Yes, you seem normal, just a bit distant. Was I appropriate? Did I say anything concerning? Nothing concerning. You were just quiet. He absorbed this silently. That night, Beth woke to find him gone. She searched the house, panic rising, and finally found him in the music room, sitting at the piano, not playing, just sitting. Ian! He turned. His eyes were clear. I remembered something. Her heart leapt. What? Not from the gaps, from before, from the asylum. She sat beside him carefully. Tell me. Dr. Edwards used to give me treatments, medicines, said they'd calm my mind, make me more manageable. I'd lose hours after taking them, just blank spaces where time should be. Beth's blood went cold. You think someone's drugging you? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe my mind is doing it to itself, protecting me from something. The way it protected me in the asylum by forgetting the worst parts. But you remember the asylum. Not all of it. There are gaps there too. I only realized it recently. Whole days missing. My memory isn't as perfect as I thought. This changed everything. What don't you remember? The worst treatments, the beatings. I remember them happening, but not the actual pain, not the details. My mind edited it out. That's normal. Trauma does that. Is it happening again? Is something so terrible happening that my mind is protecting me by erasing it? Nothing terrible is happening. You're safe here. Then why? She didn't know. Over the next week, Beth investigated quietly, checked all their food, their drinks, questioned the servants gently about anything unusual, found nothing. The gaps continued. Ian's anxiety intensified. He started avoiding people, worried about what he might do or say during episodes. Stopped going to the village, barely left the house. This is what it was like before, he said one evening. In the asylum, before Hart came, I was disappearing into myself. That's what's happening again. No, this is temporary. We'll figure it out. Will we? His doubt hurt more than anything. Beth wrote to Mac, carefully. Didn't mention the memory gaps but asked about Ian's time in the asylum. What treatments he'd received. What effects they'd had. Mac's response came quickly. Too quickly, like he'd been waiting for this question. The letter was long, detailed. Mac explained the various therapies tried on Ian. The drugs, the shocks, the isolation. Many designed to make patients more compliant by disrupting their mental processes. Some treatments caused temporary amnesia, Mac wrote. The doctors considered this a feature, not a bug. Patients who couldn't remember their episodes couldn't complain about them. Beth felt sick. They did this to him on purpose, made him forget so he wouldn't resist. But that didn't explain current gaps. Ian wasn't being drugged now. She checked everything. Unless he was doing it to himself. She found Ian's medications, the ones Hart's doctor had prescribed years ago for headaches and anxiety. Ian rarely took them, said they made him feel disconnected. Beth checked the bottle. Several pills were missing. Ian, your medication. Have you been taking it? He looked up from his book. No. Why? Pills are missing. I haven't touched them in months. Then where did they go? Understanding dawned slowly in his eyes. During the gaps. I must be taking them during the gaps. But why would you? I don't know. Maybe the headaches are worse than I realize. Maybe my unconscious mind is trying to help. By drugging you. That's not help. Isn't it? If the gaps are my mind protecting me, maybe the medicine is part of that protection. Beth wanted to scream. This circular logic was maddening. She confiscated the pills. All of them. Ian didn't protest. The next gap lasted 6 hours. Longest yet. When Ian came back, his hands were covered in dirt. What happened? I don't know. I was in the garden. They went outside, found a patch of earth freshly turned. Ian had been digging. But for what? Beth got a spade, dug carefully where the soil was disturbed. Found a small wooden box. Locked. Ian stared at it. I don't remember burying this. Do you know what's inside? No. The lock was simple. Beth forced it open with a knife. Inside, letters, dozens of them. All addressed to Ian, all unopened. From Hart. Beth's hands shook as she picked one up. The postmark was from 3 years ago, right after Ian's release from the asylum. You never read these? I don't remember receiving them. But someone had. Someone had collected these letters, hidden them, buried them, the Ian who existed during the gaps. We need to read them. No. Ian, if I buried them, I had a reason. If my unconscious mind wanted them hidden, we should respect that. Or maybe your unconscious mind is trying to protect you from something that doesn't need protecting anymore. They stared at each other, the box of letters between them. Finally, Ian picked one up. The oldest, broke the seal, read silently. His face went white. What does it say? He handed it to her wordlessly. Hart's handwriting, neat, controlled. Ian, forgive me. I should have visited more. Should have fought harder, should have gotten you out sooner. I was young and stupid and believed Father when he said the doctors knew best. I failed you. I know you won't forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry. Hart. Beth looked at Ian. Tears streamed down his face. There are dozens more, she whispered. They read through the night, letter after letter. Hart apologizing, Hart explaining, Hart promising to do better, Hart loving his brother the only way he knew how. He visited every week, Ian said hoarsely. For 7 years, every single week. He wrote when he couldn't come. He never stopped trying. You didn't remember? I remembered him coming. But not like this. Not the guilt in his face. Not the way he'd sit with me for hours just to make sure I knew I wasn't alone. Your mind protected you from seeing his pain, because his pain was another burden you didn't need. Ian wiped his eyes roughly. I've been so angry with him, thinking he used me, thinking he only cared about what I could do for him. Maybe part of you knew you needed that anger, needed distance from his guilt because it was too heavy. But it wasn't true. None of it was true. The last letter was dated just before Ian's release. Soon, brother. Soon you'll be home. Soon you'll be free. I swear I'll make up for the lost time. I swear I'll be the brother you deserved all along. Hart. Ian folded it carefully, put it back in the box. The gaps. They were protecting me from remembering this, from remembering how much he cared. Because if I remembered, I couldn't stay angry, couldn't keep my distance. Why did you need distance? Because loving people hurts. And I was already hurting so much. Beth held him while he cried, years of buried grief pouring out. When he finally calmed, dawn was breaking. Do you think the gaps will stop now? I don't know. Maybe. Now that you've faced what they were hiding. I need to write to Hart. You do. I don't know what to say. Start with thank you. He nodded slowly. The gaps did stop. Completely. Like whatever knot had been tied in Ian's mind finally unraveled. A week later, Ian finished his letter. Short. Honest. Everything Hart needed to hear. Beth posted it herself. Hart's response came quickly. Just 3 words. I love you. Ian carried that letter everywhere for days. And slowly, carefully, began healing wounds he hadn't known were still bleeding. The wedding was set for September. Beth wanted autumn colours. Wanted the hills golden and the air crisp. Wanted to marry Ian when Scotland looked its most beautiful. Hart arrived 2 weeks early. To help, he said gruffly, but really to spend time with Ian, to rebuild what years had fractured. They fished together, walked the estate, sat in comfortable silence that had once been strained. One evening, Beth found them in the library, Hart reading aloud, Ian listening with closed eyes, like children again. Before everything broke, she backed away quietly. Let them have that moment. Isabella came next. Then Cameron and Daniel. Mac last, naturally. Always had to make an entrance. The house filled with noise, laughter, arguments about everything from politics to the proper way to tie fishing flies. Beth thrived in it. She'd been alone so long. Now she had a family, loud, complicated, slightly mad, perfect. Katie arrived with the wedding dress, white silk, simple lines, no fuss. You'll be beautiful, Isabella said, eyes bright. I already had the fancy wedding, Beth reminded her. With Mather. Look how that turned out. This time you're marrying the right man. This time I'm marrying the only man. The night before the wedding, Beth couldn't sleep. Too much happiness fizzing in her veins. Too much fear that something would go wrong. She found Ian in his study, surrounded by papers. Working? Thinking. He looked up. Can't sleep. Too excited, too nervous. Second thoughts? Not one. You. Thousands, but none of them are about you. She crossed to him, settled in his lap. He wrapped arms around her automatically, protective even when relaxed. What are you thinking about? Whether I deserve this, whether I'll ruin it somehow. You won't. You don't know that. I know you. That's enough. He pressed his face into her hair, breathed deep, his anchor, his home. I read the rest of Hart's letters today. And? He wrote about you, near the end, said he'd met someone who looked at me and saw past everything else, saw the real person underneath. Hart's perceptive. He said I should marry you immediately, before you realized what you were getting into. Beth laughed softly. Smart man. He was right. You could have anyone. Someone easier. Someone whole. I don't want easy. I don't want whole. I want you, exactly as you are. Even the gaps, especially the gaps, they're part of your story, part of what made you who you are. They're gone now, I know. But they weren't a flaw, Ian. They were survival. Your mind protecting you the only way it could. He held her tighter. Morning came too fast, too slow. Beth couldn't tell which. Katie fussed over the dress. Isabella fixed her hair. The small church filled with people who'd become family. No one from Beth's past. Her parents were gone. Mrs. Barrington was gone. Thomas was gone. This was her future. These people. This life. Ian waited at the altar, perfectly still, perfectly focused. Hart stood beside him. Best man, as it should be. When Beth walked down the aisle, Ian's eyes tracked her, never leaving, never wavering. She'd never felt more seen in her life. The vicar spoke, traditional words. Beth barely heard them. Then Ian's vows. He'd written them himself, insisted on it. Beth. His voice steady. I don't understand love the way others do. Can't always express what I feel. But I know this. You are the first thing I think of when I wake, the last thing before I sleep. You are safety. You are home. You are the answer to questions I didn't know how to ask. I promise to protect you, to cherish you, to try every day to be worthy of the gift you've given me. Yourself, your heart, your patience. I promise to keep learning, keep growing, keep choosing you, every day, for the rest of my life. Beth was crying before he finished. Happy tears, overwhelmed tears. Her own vows felt inadequate suddenly. Ian, you've taught me that broken things can be beautiful, that different isn't wrong, that love doesn't require perfection. You've given me a family, a home, a future I never dreamed possible. I promise to stand beside you, to fight for you, to believe in you, especially when you can't believe in yourself. I promise to see you, really see you, not what others think you are, but who you truly are. Brilliant, brave, impossibly kind. I choose you, today and always. They exchanged rings, simple gold bands, no elaborate engravings, no need. You may kiss your bride. Ian cupped her face, looked directly into her eyes. Something he could do now, something he'd learned because she was worth the effort. The kiss was soft, sweet, private despite the audience. When they pulled apart, the church erupted in applause. Hart was wiping his eyes. Cameron was grinning. Mac looked wistful. Isabella radiant. They were married. Finally. Properly. Forever. The reception was chaos. Good chaos. Music and dancing and too much whiskey. Ian didn't dance. Never had. But he held Beth's hand through every song, content to watch her laugh, watch her spin with his brothers, watch her belong. Hart gave a toast, short, heartfelt, to my brother, who survived more than anyone should have to, and to Beth, who loved him anyway, who loved him because of who he is, not despite it. May you have the happiness you both deserve. Cameron followed, predictably inappropriate. Something about horses and marriage having similar requirements. Patience, firm hands, willingness to get kicked occasionally. Everyone laughed, even Ian. Mac's toast was quietest. To finding the person who makes you want to be better, even when better feels impossible. Even when the world says you're already broken beyond repair, love doesn't fix everything, but it makes everything worth fixing. He looked at Isabella as he said it. She looked away, but not before Beth saw the longing in her eyes. Later. She'd meddle later. The party stretched into evening, into night. Slowly people drifted off, to bed, to carriages, to wherever they needed to be. Finally, just Ian and Beth remained, sitting on the terrace, watching stars. Happy? She asked. Yes. No hesitation. You? Impossibly. Good. They sat in silence, comfortable, complete. Beth, Thank you. For what? Everything. Seeing me, saving me, staying. You saved yourself. I just refused to leave. Same thing. Maybe. He pulled her closer. She rested her head on his shoulder. Ian. I'm pregnant. He went completely still. What? Pregnant. With child. We're going to have a baby. When did you... How long have you... I've suspected for a few weeks. Confirmed it yesterday. Wanted to wait until after the wedding to tell you. Didn't want to overshadow things. Overshadow? Beth, this is... He couldn't finish. Too overwhelmed. Are you happy? I don't know what I am. Terrified. Thrilled. Both. Me too. What if I'm like him? What if I hurt our child? You won't. You're nothing like your father. Nothing. You don't know that. Yes, I do. You've spent your whole life fighting against becoming him, fighting against that rage, that cruelty. You've won, Ian. You're not him. You'll never be him. What if the child is like me? What if they have the gaps, the rages? What if they suffer the way I did? Then we'll love them through it. We'll understand. We'll protect them. They'll never be locked away, never be made to feel broken, never be alone. He was crying. Silent tears. I'm going to be a father. Yes. I don't know how. Neither did yours. But you'll do better, because you care, because you'll try, because you're you. He pulled her into his lap, held her carefully, like she was made of glass. Thank you, he whispered, for trusting me with this, for giving me this chance. Thank you for being someone I can trust, someone I want to build a life with, someone worth giving this chance to. They stayed like that, holding each other, contemplating the future, a future that suddenly felt infinite. Later in their room, Ian was almost shy, careful with her in a way he hadn't been before. I won't break, Beth said gently. I don't want to hurt the baby. You won't. The doctor said everything is fine. Normal. We can continue as usual. You saw a doctor without me. In the village. I wanted to be sure before I told you. I should have been there. Next time you will be. For all of it. He relaxed slightly. All of it? Every moment you want to be. I want to be there for everything. Then you will be. He kissed her, slowly, reverently, like she was something sacred. They made love carefully, tenderly. Ian's hand resting on her stomach the entire time, protecting what they'd created. After lying in the dark, Beth felt Ian's hand move, gentle circles on her skin. Hello, he whispered. I'm your father. I don't know how to do this, don't know if I'll be any good at it, but I promise to try, promise to love you, promise to keep you safe. Your mother is the bravest, smartest, kindest person I know. You're lucky to have her. We both are. Beth closed her eyes. Let the tears come. I'm going to make mistakes, Ian continued. Going to do things wrong, but I'll never stop trying to do better, never stop learning, never stop loving you. That's my promise, the only one I can make, but I'll keep it. I swear I'll keep it. Beth covered his hand with hers. We'll keep it together. Together. He agreed. Sleep came eventually. Peaceful. Content. The next weeks were careful. Ian hovering. Beth patient with his hovering. Everyone else amused by his hovering. First-time fathers, Cameron said, shaking his head. Always ridiculous. You were worse, Hart reminded him. Wouldn't let Elizabeth out of bed for months. She was carrying my son. Of course I was protective. Overprotective. Same thing. Beth enjoyed it, actually. Being cared for. Being fussed over. She'd been alone so long. Independent by necessity. Now she could lean on someone. Let someone share the burden. Let someone share the joy. Ian read every book on pregnancy and childbirth he could find, memorized them, quoted passages at random. Did you know the baby can hear us now? I did not. We should read to them, play music, talk constantly. Ian, I'm 3 months along. They're barely formed. Still, better to start early. So they read. They played piano. Ian talked to her stomach constantly. Beth found it adorable, even when it was excessive. Mac painted her, a portrait. Beth glowing, pregnant, happy. For the baby, he said. So they know how beautiful their mother was, how loved. Isabella cried when she saw it. It's perfect. It's true, Mac corrected. There's a difference. They looked at each other, something passing between them. Understanding, regret, hope. Mac, Isabella started. Not yet, he said quietly, but maybe someday. She nodded, looked away. Beth filed that moment away, to revisit later, when she had energy for meddling. Winter came early that year, snow in October. The house transformed into something from a fairy story, white and pristine and magical. Ian worried about Beth getting cold, getting sick, slipping on ice. I grew up in London, she reminded him. I survived worse than Scottish winter. Maya, you weren't pregnant in London. Fair point. She let him bundle her in furs, light fires in every room, hover constantly. Christmas approached, their first as a married couple, their first as an expecting family. The house filled again, everyone coming home, coming together. Hart had news, political news, good news, a position in the cabinet, real power, real influence. You earned it, Ian said simply. We earned it. Your mind made half my career possible. You would have succeeded without me, but I succeeded better with you. They clasped hands, brothers, partners, whole. On Christmas Eve, Beth went into labour, 2 months early. Too early. Terrifyingly early. Ian went white. Get the doctor, now. Cameron ran. Hart paced. Mac tried to be useful and mostly got in the way. Isabella held Beth's hand. Breathe. Just breathe. Too soon, Beth gasped. It's too soon. Sometimes babies come early, doesn't mean anything is wrong, but her eyes said otherwise, said everything was wrong. The doctor arrived, took charge, sent everyone out except Isabella. Ian refused to leave, had to be physically removed by Cameron and Hart. She needs space, Hart said firmly. The doctor needs space. You'll help no one by hovering. Ian fought. Actually fought. Had to be restrained. Brother, Hart said quietly, I know you're scared, but you have to trust them, have to let them work. Ian stopped struggling, went limp. I can't lose her. You won't. She's strong. She survived worse than this. She's everything. If anything happens, nothing will happen. But his eyes said he didn't believe it either. Hours passed. Agonizing hours. Beth's screams echoed through the house. Ian sat on the floor outside the room, head in hands, shaking. Cameron sat beside him, said nothing. Just present. Hart paced. Mac stared at nothing. Daniel prayed quietly in the corner. Then silence. Terrible silence. Ian's head snapped up. A baby's cry shattered the quiet. Thin, reedy, but alive. The door opened. Isabella emerged, bloody, exhausted, smiling. It's a girl, small but breathing, fighting, just like her mother. Beth? Asking for you. Ian was through the door before Isabella finished speaking. Beth lay pale against white sheets, holding a tiny bundle, looking up with tired eyes. Ian, meet your daughter. He approached slowly, carefully, like approaching something holy. The baby was impossibly small, impossibly perfect. Dark hair, Beth's nose, his eyes. She's early, Beth said. The doctor says the next few days will be critical, but she's breathing on her own, That's good. That's very good. Ian touched one tiny hand. It wrapped around his finger. Squeezed. Hello, he whispered. I'm your father. I've been waiting to meet you. The baby made a small sound, not quite a cry, more a question. You're safe now, Ian continued. We've got you. We'll protect you. I promise. Beth was crying. What should we name her? Eleanor, Ian said immediately. After Hart's Eleanor, the one who got away, the one who made him believe in love even when it hurt. Beth smiled. Eleanor McKenzie. It's perfect. It's true, Ian corrected, echoing Mac. There's a difference. They sat together, new family, fragile, uncertain, but together. Eleanor survived that first night, then the second, then the third. Each day a victory, each breath a miracle. By the end of the week, the doctor pronounced her out of danger. She's a fighter, he said, impressed. Stronger than she looks. Like her mother, Ian said. Like both of you, Beth corrected. Eleanor grew, slowly, but steadily. No gaps, no obvious signs of Ian's struggles. Just a normal, healthy, impossibly loved baby. Ian was besotted, completely, utterly. Would sit for hours just watching her sleep. She's going to be spoiled, Beth warned. Good, she deserves to be spoiled. Ian, I'm not going to be him, Beth. I'm going to be better. I'm going to give her everything I never had. Safety, security, love without conditions. I know you will. She'll never doubt she's wanted, never doubt she belongs, never doubt she's enough exactly as she is. She won't, I promise. Spring came eventually. Eleanor thrived. The house settled into new rhythms, new routines. And Beth realized something important. She'd been so focused on Ian's healing, on helping him recover, on building their life. She'd forgotten to heal herself, forgotten she carried wounds too, scars from her own childhood, her own losses. Now, holding Eleanor, watching Ian be the father he never had, she felt them all at once. The grief, the loneliness, the years of just surviving. She started crying, couldn't stop. Ian found her in the nursery, Eleanor sleeping peacefully, Beth sobbing quietly. What's wrong? Nothing. Everything. I don't know. He sat beside her, waited. I was so alone, she finally said, for so long, even with Thomas, even with Mrs. Barrington. I was fundamentally alone, no family, no real home, just surviving day to day. I know. And now I have you, and Eleanor, and this whole family, and I don't know how to hold it all. Don't know how to believe it's real. It's real. What if it disappears? What if I wake up and it was all a dream? It won't. I won't let it. You can't control everything. No, but I can promise to stay. Promise to keep choosing you. Keep choosing this every single day. She leaned against him. Let him hold her. Let herself break a little. I'm scared, she whispered. Of what? That I'll ruin her. That I won't know how to be a mother. That my past will poison her future. You won't. It won't. You don't know that. Yes, I do, because you're aware of it. Worried about it. That means you'll be careful, intentional, present. That's all any child needs. Is it enough? It's everything. Eleanor stirred, made a small sound. Beth picked her up automatically, soothed her back to sleep. See? Ian said softly. You already know how. Instinct. Love. Maybe they were the same thing. The months that followed were hard. Beautiful, but hard. Eleanor cried constantly, didn't sleep, needed everything. Beth was exhausted. Ian was exhausted. They took turns, supported each other, learned together, and slowly, gradually, it got easier. Eleanor smiled for the first time at 3 months, laughed at 4, rolled over at 5. Each milestone a celebration, each moment precious. The family visited constantly. Hart was a surprisingly attentive uncle. Cameron taught Eleanor to love horses before she could walk. Mac painted her monthly. Isabella sang to her in Italian. She was surrounded by love, drowning in it, growing in it. And Beth realized something else. This was what healing looked like. Not dramatic, not sudden, just steady. Day by day, moment by moment, building something new from the broken pieces of the past, creating safety where there'd been danger, love where there'd been loss, hope where there'd been despair. Ian had started it, by surviving, by fighting, by refusing to let his past define his future. Now they were continuing it, together, with Eleanor, with family, building something better, something lasting, something worth all the pain it took to get here. Eleanor turned one on a bright spring morning, the house filled with family, with laughter, with chaos. Beth watched Ian hold their daughter, watched her grab his nose, pull his hair, laugh at his exaggerated reactions. He was good at this. Being a father, better than he'd ever believed possible, better than anyone had expected. "She's got your stubbornness," Hart said, watching Eleanor refuse to share her toys. "And your determination," Beth added. "Poor child," Cameron laughed. "Doomed from both sides." But there was affection in it, pride. Eleanor wasn't just their daughter. She was the family's hope, proof that the cycle could break, that McKenzies could love without destroying, could build without burning down. The party wound down. Guests left. Eleanor fell asleep in Ian's arms. He carried her upstairs, laid her in the crib Mac had carved, stood watching her breathe. "What are you thinking?" Beth asked. "That I never imagined this." "What?" "Happiness. Real happiness. Not just absence of pain. Actual joy. And it terrifies me." "Why?" "Because I could lose it. Because it feels too good. Too perfect. Like the universe will notice and take it away." Beth took his hand. "The universe doesn't work that way. Doesn't it? Everyone I've loved has been hurt or died or left. My mother, Sally, Lily, Mrs. Palmer. Even Isabella left Mac. Why should you be different? Because we are. Because we chose this knowing the cost, knowing the risk, choosing it anyway. Is that enough? It's all we have, all anyone has. The choice to keep showing up, keep trying, keep loving despite everything." He looked at Eleanor, at their sleeping daughter. "I want to give her everything I never had." "You already are. You're present. You're safe. You're here. That's everything." "Is it?" "Yes." He pulled Beth close, held her tight. "I love you. More than I thought I could love anything. It scares me how much." "I know. But Ian." "Yes?" "That's the point. Love is supposed to be that big, that overwhelming, that terrifying. If it's not really love." He kissed her, gentle, deep, full of everything he couldn't say. They left Eleanor sleeping, went to their own room, made love slowly, quietly, then lay tangled together, talking until dawn. About Eleanor, about the future, about fears and hopes and dreams. They talked about expanding the house, about having more children, about growing old together, about everything and nothing. "Do you ever miss it?" Ian asked. "Miss what?" "Your old life, the simplicity, not being tied to a family like mine." "No." "Never?" "Never. Ian, I was lonely before, fundamentally alone. Now I'm not. I'll take the complications, the chaos, the overwhelming love, all of it, every time. Even when Hart's being impossible. Even then. When Mac drinks too much. Yes. When Cameron won't talk about his feelings. Always. When I have my episodes. When I can't speak or look at you or function like a normal person. Especially then. Ian, I didn't fall in love with normal. I fell in love with you. All of you. The brilliant parts and the broken parts and everything in between. I don't deserve you. Stop. You deserve love, happiness, peace, all of it. And I'm going to make sure you have it, whether you think you deserve it or not." He couldn't argue, just held her tighter. The years passed. Eleanor grew, started walking, talking, asking endless questions Ian patiently answered. They had another child, a son. Thomas, named for Beth's first husband, Ian insisted. Said the man deserved to be remembered, to have his goodness carried forward. Thomas was quieter than Eleanor, more contemplative, more like Ian. He'd stare at things for hours, patterns in wallpaper, ripples in water, clouds moving across sky. "Is he?" Beth asked once. "Like me? Maybe, probably. And that's okay. It has to be, because even if he is, he'll have what I didn't. Parents who understand, who accept him, who won't try to fix or change or hide him. We'll help him. We'll love him. That's all we can do. All anyone can do." Thomas thrived, different from other children, but happy, safe, loved. The family adapted, learned, supported. Hart became unexpectedly patient with Thomas, would sit with him for hours, watching patterns together, sharing silence. "You understand him," Beth said once. "I understand what it's like to be different, to not fit, to need the world to slow down and make sense. You're good with him. He's easy to be good with. He doesn't demand, doesn't judge, just is." Cameron taught both children about horses. Eleanor fearless, Thomas cautious but curious. Mac painted them constantly, capturing moments Beth didn't want to forget. Isabella sang Italian lullabies, taught them to appreciate beauty, to find joy in small things. The children were surrounded by love, by family, by people who'd been broken and healed enough to help others heal too. Inspector Fellows visited occasionally, still uncomfortable, still not quite fitting, but trying. His mother had died. Hart had paid for everything. The funeral, the headstone. Fellows hadn't known how to respond. "You didn't have to," he'd said. "Yes, I did. She was family, wronged by our father, deserving of respect. I spent years trying to destroy you. I know. And you still." "Yes." "Why?" "Because holding grudges is exhausting. Because you're my brother. Because it's what our father wouldn't have done. And I refuse to be him." Fellows had cried. Actually cried. Then left quickly, embarrassed. But he came back, slowly, cautiously, building bridges he'd spent years burning. Beth watched it all. The healing, the growing, the family becoming something new, something better. She thought about Mrs. Palmer sometimes, about Sally and Lily, about all the people hurt by the McKenzie men before they learned to control their power. The ghosts would always be there. The past never truly disappeared. But it could be honoured, learned from, used to build something better. One evening, Eleanor 7 and Thomas 5, Beth found Ian in his collection room, holding the dragon bowl he'd given her, their wedding present. "What are you doing?" "Remembering." "What?" "When I first saw you, in Mother's box at the opera, you were so beautiful, so alive, so completely unimpressed by me. I was terrified. You hid it well. So did you." He set down the bowl, carefully. "I thought I'd never have this. A wife, children, family, peace. I thought I was too broken, too damaged, too mad. And now? Now I know I was broken, am broken, will always be broken in some ways. But that's okay. Because you love me anyway. Because our children don't need perfect. They need present. And I can do that. I can show up, be here, choose them every day. You're a good father. I'm trying to be. You are. Ian, you are. Eleanor adores you. Thomas feels safe with you. They're growing up knowing they're loved, knowing they're accepted exactly as they are. That's everything. Is it enough? It's more than enough. It's what breaks the cycle, what stops the pattern, what makes sure they don't carry our wounds forward. He pulled her close. Thank you. For what? For seeing me, for staying, for believing I could be more than my past. You were always more. I just helped you see it. They stood together, in the room full of treasures, surrounded by beauty, but the real treasure was what they'd built. The life, the family, the love. Eleanor called from downstairs. Thomas crying about something, the dogs barking, normal chaos, normal life. Ian smiled, took Beth's hand, led her back to their family, back to the noise and mess and beautiful imperfection of it all. Years later, Eleanor 15 and Thomas 13, Beth found old letters, hidden in the attic. Letters from Hart's wife, Sarah, written before she died. Never sent. They were heartbreaking, full of fear and loneliness and desperate love for a man she couldn't reach. Beth brought them to Hart. I found these. He read them, face unchanging, but his hands shook. I didn't know, he finally said. Know what? How scared she was, how alone. I thought she was fine, thought the arrangement worked, thought she understood. Did you love her? I don't know. I tried to, wanted to, but I was so focused on politics, on power, on proving I wasn't father. I forgot to actually be present. It wasn't all your fault, wasn't it? I chose ambition, chose control, chose everything except her, and she died thinking I didn't care. What will you do? I don't know, but I can't keep pretending it didn't matter. Can't keep hiding from what I did, who I was, who you were. Past tense. You're different now. Am I? Yes. You're patient with fellows, gentle with the children, present with family. You've changed, Hart. You're still changing. Is it enough? It has to be, because we can't undo the past, can only learn from it, build something better. He looked at the letters, at his dead wife's words. I wish I'd known. Wish I'd tried harder, been better. You're trying now, being better now, that counts. Does it? Yes. For your niece and nephew, for fellows, for all of us watching you become the man you're supposed to be. It counts. He carefully folded the letters, put them in his pocket. Thank you for bringing these, for not letting me forget. We can't forget, but we can forgive ourselves and each other, and keep moving forward. Ian found Beth later. What did Hart say? That he wishes he'd been better. Don't we all? Yes. But Ian, we are better. You and me. We learned, we changed. We broke the pattern. Did we? Look at our children. Happy, safe, loved. Growing up without fear, without violence, without secrets. Yes, we broke it. He looked at Eleanor and Thomas, playing chess, arguing good-naturedly, being siblings, being children, being free. I spent so long thinking I'd be like father, that the madness would win, that I'd hurt everyone I loved. But you didn't. No, because you wouldn't let me, because you kept choosing me, kept believing, kept loving even when I couldn't love myself. And you did the same for me. Made me believe I deserved this, deserved happiness, deserved family. Did I? Every day, every moment, every time you looked at me like I mattered, like I was worth something, like I was enough exactly as I was. They watched their children, their family, the life they'd built from broken pieces. We did it, Beth said softly. Did what? Survived, healed, built something beautiful from all the pain. Together. Always together. Ian took her hand. 40 years of marriage. 2 grown children. Grandchildren now. Ian and Beth sat on the porch of their Scottish home, watching the sun set over the mountains. Do you remember, Beth said, when you told me you couldn't love? I was wrong. Spectacularly wrong. I loved you before I understood what love was, before I had words for it, before I knew it was possible. And now I know love is everything, the foundation, the purpose, the point. Without it, all the money and power and success means nothing. When did you get so wise? When I started listening to my brilliant wife. She laughed, leaned against him. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind only decades together can create. Ian, yes, thank you. For what? For staying, for fighting, for osing this life, this family, me, every single day for 40 years. It was never a choice. It was necessity, like breathing, like existing. I couldn't not choose you. Still, thank you. Thank you for seeing me, for loving me, for making me believe I deserve to be loved. The sun disappeared. Stars emerged. Inside, they heard Eleanor helping with dinner, Thomas playing with his children, the next generation, growing, learning, loving. We did good, Ian said. We did. They stood, walked inside, to family, to love, to the life they'd built. Together, against all odds, despite everything, they'd survived, they'd healed, they'd loved. And that, Beth realized, was everything. The only thing, the point of it all. And sometimes, that's all a story needs to say. Not every ending requires fireworks or grand declarations. Sometimes, it's enough to watch two people sit together, having survived everything the world threw at them. Ian McKenzie started locked in an asylum, declared mad by people who couldn't understand how his mind worked. Beth Akali began in a workhouse, daughter of a con man, scraping by on the margins of society. Neither should have found happiness. Neither should have built a family. Neither should have healed. But they did, because they saw each other. Really saw. Past the labels and diagnoses and society's judgments. Past the broken pieces and the scars. They saw the person underneath and decided that was enough. More than enough. Everything. The McKenzie family broke its pattern of violence and pain. Not through dramatic gestures or sudden transformations. Through small choices repeated daily. Through showing up. Through loving imperfectly but persistently. Through refusing to let the past dictate the future. Hart learned to be present instead of powerful. Cameron learned to be gentle. Mac learned to create beauty from pain. Fellows learned to forgive. And Ian learned that being different wasn't the same as being broken. Their children grew up free. Free from fear, free from secrets, free from the crushing weight of expectations they could never meet. They grew up knowing they were loved exactly as they were. That's what breaking a cycle looks like. Not perfect people raising perfect children, but healed enough people refusing to pass their wounds forward. Beth and Ian gave each other what they'd both been missing. Home, safety, acceptance, the radical gift of being completely known and completely loved anyway. They proved that broken things can be beautiful, that different doesn't mean less, that love isn't about perfection, but about presence. 40 years together. 2 children, grandchildren, a life built from ruins, from fragments, from 2 people who refused to believe their pasts defined their futures. They chose each other when no one else would have, when society said they didn't fit, when logic said it couldn't work. They chose each other and kept choosing. Every day, every moment, every breath. That was their rebellion, their revolution, their gift to each other and everyone who came after. The simple, profound act of staying, of loving, of building something lasting from broken pieces. Sometimes that's all we can do. Show up, stay present, love the people in front of us as hard as we can. Hope it's enough. For Ian and Beth, it was. It was everything.